We are only 1 day away from the Fed rate decision, the dot plot, the Jerome Powell press conference. And today we're going to take a look at what happened the last 2 times the dot plot was released and what the move in the market was. All of that in part 3, the final video preparing you for the Fed meeting this week. Check it out. All right, so let's take a look at what happened the last 2 times we got the dot plot released. Again, the dot plot showing the expectations for rate cuts from the Fed. And we're going to start by looking at the December 18th, 2024 dot plot. And you can see this big old fatty of a candle right here. This is one hell of a move. I'm going to measure this from its upper wick to its lower wick, just to show you the range here. And we're looking at 203.32 points. That was a 3.35% move. And you may be wondering, well, what in the world happened here on this date in terms of the dot plot? And I'm going to share the data here with you. I pulled it up. But it said that the outlook on rates that was shared here on the 18th, the Fed officials projected accumulated 50 basis points of rate cuts in 2025, then another 50 bips in 2026, and 25 bips in 2027 basis points, bringing the terminal rate to 3.125% by the end of 2027. And so looking at that, the market reaction, there were 34 basis points of projected cuts versus 48 basis points of projected cuts previously. So that decrease in the number of cuts that were projected spooked markets. And then what we saw is this big old behemoth here on the screen. And let's actually go into the hourly chart to take it. See that we were in an uptrend. We were pushing up. We were up near, these were all-time highs for the time. And then you could see we started to make lower highs. Okay. And then coming into the 18th, here's the 18th right here. You could see that the market did push up a little bit. And then you could see it started to sell down around 12:30. And then here at 1:30 p.m., this is the candle where the news broke and came in. And that's where the decrease in rate cuts, the rate projections were cut. This is where the dot plot was released, and bang, you could see what happened. 3 big, massive red candles on the hourly, and this bottomed really not the day after, but the day after that, and then it started to push out of there, recovered a little bit, but then started to drop. But that spooked the market, and you saw that subsequent drop, and potentially if we see something like that on Wednesday, if the Fed decreases the number of rate cuts that they're anticipating in 2025 and then in 26 and 27, we could see a similar type of reaction. So be prepared, be ready. And I would advise that if you're in a day trade heading into this 2 p.m. time frame when the dot plot is released, make sure you close it or make sure that you move your stop into an area where you are protected, because you could get a very massive volatile move. So that's the December 18th move. Next move we want to look at is going to be in March, and this was March 19th, 2025. We were already in a bit of a downtrend at that point in time. So right here, so we did have a little bit of a green day, and again, we were in that downtrend. We had the tariff news that came out. At that point, we got a little bit of a bounce that came in, pushed back up higher, but this was the 19th. So it was a little bit of a move. We see that upper wick here. And let's drill down and go into the hourly. All right, so here is March 19th right here. So you could see 12:30, 1:30, and then here is whenever we got those dot plot projections. And let me just share with you the information that was released in that 2025 dot plot summary. And again, the rate outlook at that point, the median projection was 225 basis point rate cuts in 2025, another 50 basis points cut in 26, and a quarter basis points cut in 27. So it was identical to the information shared in December. And so you saw a bit of a pop here. It jumped up to 57.14. but it didn't hold that strength there. So if we measure this, how far it ran up, and it wasn't a lot, 35 points, but it gave it all back. A few days later, we did gap up before we started that ultimate sell down there into the April lows. But what stood out here from the March release of the dot plot is that there was less consensus amongst the Fed members about the number of projected cuts. So in this instance, there wasn't an increase of the number of projected cuts. There wasn't a decrease. They held it steady. And so there was a little bit of optimism that came from that. You saw that little bit of pop, you saw that upper wick, but you could see that that didn't hold and it just kind of moved sideways and sold down the next day, sold down the day after. And then we had a gap up going from Friday into Monday before really getting that ultimate weakness that sent the entire market down. So that's what happened the last two times. December, a decrease in the number of projected rate cuts. March, they held it steady. In December, it sold off hard. In March, it popped a little bit, but then came back down to earth. And so what will we get here on Wednesday? Will it be decreasing the number of cuts because of uncertainty related to tariffs? Or will that uncertainty cause them to just hang tight again? Or do they see weakening in the economy and the need to be proactive? And do they see the need for more rate cuts? And if that is the case, how will the market react in that situation? Will it be a push higher? Will it be a sell-off? We don't know, but at least we have something to guide our decision making based off what has happened the last few times the dot plot was released.
So there you have it. You are now prepared. Go, my son, my daughter, into the Fed rate decision, into the release of the dot plot, into Papa Powell giving his speech and his comments. You are prepared. You know what to expect. You know what to anticipate. And let me know below, what do you think is going to happen? Are they going to dial back the number of rate cuts that they're anticipating? Or are they going to say that there's more rate cuts? What's going to be the move in the market? Remember, we're going to be live streaming 2:30 on Wednesday, the Powell presser. So join me, let's chat, and I'll see you here on the next video. Make it a great day, everyone.